It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're looking at the movies of June 16th, 1995. We got 4 movies to look at today, so let's just go ahead and jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, maybe the biggest new release of the summer period, or maybe the year period, I should say. That is, of course, Batman Forever. So, of course, Batman Forever is most notoriously known as the first movie without Tim Burton at the director's chair. He was replaced by Joel Schumacher after Batman Returns was a mostly mixed reception film, both critically and financially, and it caused controversy with McDonald's, and Warner Brothers wanted to do a more safe and marketable Batman movie. So they bring in Joel Schumacher. They also replace Michael Keaton. You have Val Kilmer starring in this one. Basically, his only Batman movie, even though he was asked to return for Batman and Robin, but he decided not to do that. But yeah, Batman Forever. The whole point of this movie was to make Batman more safe and marketable, and the end result is a pretty decent film. While it's not anywhere near as good as the first Batman movie, it does manage to fix a lot of the majority of the problems that were in Batman Returns, and the film itself does deliver what it promises: an enjoyable, fun action film. I think one of the highlights of the film, most of all, is that the cast fits the roles mostly well. I'll talk about some of the ones that don't in just a moment, but Val Kilmer, I think, does a good job of blending both the portrayals of Bruce Wayne and Batman very well, giving them each his own identity, making it easy for people not to figure out who he is, even though, I gotta say, like, watching Val Kilmer smile in that bat mask and all that. Like, why did Warner Brothers think that would be a thing to sell in that trailer? It doesn't look good there. It doesn't look good in the movie. I don't know. Like, Nicole Kidman, I think, is cast very well as Dr. Chase Meridian. She's not really given a whole lot to do, though, except to just be sexy, which isn't a bad thing, per se, but, I mean, hey, you put Nicole Kidman in any sexy clothing or lingerie, and I'm good on that front, but they don't really give her a lot to do. It doesn't completely It doesn't. They don't really use her all that much. She's just there to be kind of the damsel in distress, even though she's trying to be more like sort of a Vicky Vale or even sort of a Selena Kyle from the previous movie. But I don't know. Whenever I see her on there, it's just kind of like there could have been a whole lot more that could have been done with her. You know, Chris O'Donnell does pretty good as Dick Grayson. He's pretty good for the most part. He actually does contribute to the film up until the end of the movie, where he's basically kind of like with Dr. Meridian. He's like kind of there to just be something for Batman to save. I mean, I thought Jim Carrey overall as the Riddler wasn't too bad. I thought he was okay for his own interpretation of that character. I mean, if I had to pick the best version of the Riddler, I have to go again with the animated series. I mean, John Glover just perfectly fits that role so well. I think that's a really good version of the Riddler that's very hard to duplicate. And I know that Paul Dano tried his best earlier last year with the Batman, which he was okay in for the most part, but there were times, yeah, where he did kind of take it a little bit too far, a little bit too over the top, like even more than what Jim Carrey does in here. And I mean, Jim Carrey was at least fun to watch in this movie, but yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Tommy Lee Jones as Harvey Dent. I mean, wow. That was bad. That was really, really bad. I mean, good Lord. This was a horrible performance. I mean, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with Harvey Dent. I mean, he was never this crazy in the comics. And again, go back to the animated series. They gave Bull from Night Court the chance to do this, where Al Pacino could have easily fit into that role. Remember, he was actually being considered for that role in Batman the Animated Series, but eventually Richard Mole ended up beating him. And you know what? He made that character his own. He made a great character. I mean, you wouldn't think that Bull from Night Court gives a much better performance as a Two-Face than Tommy Lee Jones does. But the biggest problem is that I think Tommy Lee Jones went way too crazy for the role of Harvey Dent, and Dent was never like that in the comics, nor was he like that in the TV show. I don't know what they were thinking. Just maybe Joel Schumacher's mentality of go over the top, go crazy, took that a little bit too far, but it's a really bad performance. It makes Jim Carrey look sensible. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about that. But I thought the overall action sequences were shot pretty well, mostly because of the cinematography by Stephen Goldblatt. The sets in his look very impressive. You are starting to see more CG sets being thrown into this with the newer computer technology, and for the most part, it meshes okay. Story itself pretty much plays out like like before in Batman Returns. There aren't as many plot holes this time around, and the film does run a lot smoother than the previous film. It's definitely better than Batman Returns, but it still doesn't peak at the levels of what the original Batman did. I mean, for the most part, everybody's doing the best job that they could. The action sequences are nicely done. The story works very well. It does run a lot smoother than the previous film did. He had one task when it comes to make this movie, to make it safe and marketable, and he succeeded in that. I wouldn't consider it one of the great superhero movies, but it's still a fun movie. And, of course, it gave Joel Schumacher more creative control in the next movie, which, yeah, we will eventually get to that one when we get to 1997. But in the meantime, that's Batman Forever for you. So let's move on to the other movie that came out this weekend. It was a limited release for it because it would come out in wide release the next weekend, but it came out in limited this weekend. Disney's follow-up to The Lion King, the animated feature Pocahontas. So, this is the follow-up, of course, to The Lion King, which became not only Disney's biggest hit at the time, became one of the biggest animated hits of all time. And this movie is more notoriously known as, if you ever seen the documentary Waking Sleeping Beauty, I think I've talked about this before when we talked about The Lion King. Of course, Jeffrey Katzenberger made the statement that he thought that Pocahontas was going to be a surefire hit. It was going to be like West Side Story meets Indians, and he thought The Lion King was going to be an experiment and that nobody was going to go see it. And in the way, it worked out completely different. The Lion King went on to become a surefire hit. Pocahontas was definitely more of an experimental film when it comes to Disney, but it's definitely a movie that looks pretty nice in terms of the animation. I mean, you see it in that trailer there. The great music is still there. It's Alan Menken once again. But the story really is lackluster. It turns one of the greatest stories in American history into a cheap romantic drama. I mean, the relationship between John Smith and Pocahontas was never meant to be seen as romantic, but not in this movie's case. It's got to be West Side Story meets Indians, and it's not very good in the story department, along with a lot of the historical inaccuracies and the fact that Disney kind of bribed a lot of Native Americans to basically say good things about this, even though it's been widely said that they were basically being paid out to say that no, this is completely historically accurate and all that type of stuff. And it's just like, yeah, you can stretch the truth a little bit with the historical aspects, but in this, it really does seem like 75 to 80% of this is just fucked up just to make the movie go with this BS romantic plot line they're trying to establish, which, again, was never meant to be that way. And it also doesn't help that, once again, we have a villain his only goal is just to make money, and that's his only motivation. And believe me, Disney's going to have a lot of those over the next couple of movies that they do. Tarzan, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. It's going to be one of those type of things for the next couple of years. And it did kind of start the inevitable downward spiral of the Disney Renaissance, because, of course, this was after the 10-year period where the studio was at the bottom, rose back up, and then kind of started petering down a little bit. As far as the movie itself goes, animation-wise, it's great. The voice work overall is very well done. The music is still very good. It's a film that could have been a whole lot better with a little bit more of a historical accuracy to the time period, but instead we get a nice animated film with some good songs, but a story that we've seen done to death numerous times. It's definitely not the worst of the Disney animated movies, but it definitely signaled the beginning of the downward spiral that the Renaissance was taking in. I mean, Disney would still have some hits in the 90s as well, but they certainly wouldn't be they certainly pale in comparison to Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, and yeah. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. That's Pocahontas. But with that said, let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Il Postino, The Postman. So the big story about this movie is that it was shot in 1994, and it starred Massimo Troisi. And while he was making this movie, he was severely ill during filming. He kept postponing heart surgery so he can complete the movie, and then the day after the film finished filming, he suffered a fatal heart attack, and the film was later completed and released posthumously, and it eventually got him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, and got several awards, actually, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Original Dramatic Score. But on that front, it makes for a very fascinating film. I mean, this is a movie where this guy has given it his all. Like, he's literally fighting death to make this movie complete. and he makes the movie why you should see it. It's such an amazing performance that this guy gives. I don't know too much about this guy, but he really puts his heart and soul into the making of this movie. The fact that he had to do this while he was fighting death, and literally just keeps doing the everything in this movie to make this work. And it never feels like he's rushing into it. He's committed to the story, and the chemistry between him and this person that he falls in love with just works so well. The casting in this is very well done. Massimo Trassi is well made. Is very well done in this movie, I should say, as Mario Rupolo, and Felipe Noret, who plays Pablo Neruda, plays a very good role in this film as well. And it's just a very nice looking film. It takes place in 1950s Italy. It feels like you're in 1950s Italy, and it just looks like such an amazing effort to make this look as authentic as it can be. And it is just something that just sticks by with Massimo Trassi fighting for his life, making sure that this movie gets finished, and the way he's committed to this character and this performance. You definitely see it here on screen. It's it's the reason why you should see this movie, just to see how much somebody is willing to go, even though there's a chance that they're going to be dying almost immediately, to just keep going, keep doing what you love, and then doing it until you finally croak and die. It's just like, it sounds morbid what I'm trying to say here, but the point is, this movie is pretty damn amazing. I really did not go into this with a whole lot of expectations for it, but man, I really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. I want to get a physical copy of it one day so I can actually watch it anytime I want to. I'm pretty sure I can, but yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's one that a lot of people don't know about, but it's definitely one you should check out if you want to see a good feel-good movie, like a well-made film overall, a well-made period piece, something on the lines of kind of like La Dolce Vita in a way. It felt like kind of like that, but it's a really good film. It's a really amazing film. Il Postino, The Postman. Definitely check it out. I can't recommend it enough. Look for that movie if you can, because it is definitely worth it. And so with that said, let's get to the last movie that we have here, and that is The Incredible True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. So remember when I said in Bar Girls that this was a far superior movie? I stuck by that because when I saw this movie, the first time I saw it was about 10 years ago, and I just kind of saw it on a whim. I had no real knowledge of what the movie was. I just saw that it had Nicole Ray Parker, who I'd seen in a couple of movies before I saw this movie, and I also knew who Laura Holloman was. She was on The L Word, and it's a really charming movie. Like, it's a very well-made film. It's a nice little love story between these two women that doesn't feel like it's forcing anything on you. It doesn't feel over the top or crazy. It's a simple love story between these two girls, and these two women, I should say, and it's just well acted on both fronts. The movie is Parker and Holloman work off each other very well. The chemistry is very good. The comedy overall is really funny. It's a nicely made romantic comedy. It feels like a Hollywood romantic comedy, except with the focus being on the fact that it's two women instead of a guy and a girl. And it's very well done. It's a very well made film. It's a very unique film for what they were trying to do for the time period. And it's just a very good movie with two likable people in the cast in the leading roles, and just great comedy, great romance between these two. Their relationship feels very authentic and real. It doesn't feel like it's phoning anything in on you or trying to send a message or anything out there. It's just two women who really love each other, and it doesn't feel forced on you. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything crazy or anything extravagant to get full attention. But what they do here is deliver a strong story between two people, and it works very well. Very funny, well casted. I highly recommend checking this movie out. It's one that I really did not know too much about when I first saw it. And I'm glad I saw it because it was a nicely made film. The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. I highly recommend it. And so on that note, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next week, we have June 23rd, which Pocahontas was the big new release because that was going wide. But other than that, nothing else opened up on that weekend in wider release. There are two movies here that opened in limited release, Sister, My Sister, and Safe. We'll delve into those, but I'm also going to delve into the four films that I didn't see on when I did Memorial Day weekend. And that was because they weren't highlighted, but I have them right here. Mad Love, Tales from the Hood, A Pure Formality, and Stalingrad. So We'll have 6 movies to look at overall, including the 2 new releases that come out this weekend. Actually, 3 new releases now that I see. Another one that's not highlighted, The City of Lost Children. So, 7 movies now. Let me just double check here. 7 movies? 7 movies. So 7 movies to look at next time around. So, anyway, let's get out of here with that. So with that said, thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, as always, take care.